The professional world is a place where both pitchers and batters are desperately trying to seize their positions, so saying you want to hit and pitch at the same time is disrespectful to those who are already doing both. Shohei Ohtani.
Oh my goodness! God! One-of-a-kind player! One-of-a-kind season!
すごい喜んでもらいたかったので、それができなかったのが一番悔しいです。
At 18 years old, Shohei Ohtani made a decision that angered people across Japan. 2 years later, he just threw the fastest pitch in Japanese history. He just became the first player in Japanese history to have 10 wins and 10 home runs in a season. He just struck out Yasiel Puig, Justin Morneau, and Evan Longoria in a row, and he's just 20 years old. Yet according to Yu Darvish, Japan's current baseball hero,
本人がメジャーにもし行きたいとかっていうなった時はこれは多分絶対足引っ張ることになると思うんで、二刀流では絶対メジャー行けないじゃないですか。はい。それは無理になるんで、どっちかで絞ってメジャーとか、はい、日本ハムは絞らなきゃいけないっていうふうにはずっと思ってます。はい。逆にそうやってあいつ打者としても本当はめちゃくちゃすごいらしいよぐらいの方が、はい、僕は面白いな。
People within Ohtani's own organization were upset that he was even being allowed to be used as a two-way player. Yet, he had just become the first Japanese player in history to win 10 games on the mound while hitting 10 home runs in the same season. He was an all-star, and the entire country was comparing him to Babe Ruth. Yet, despite popular belief, Babe Ruth was never actually a two-way player in the way Ohtani is today. The only real comparison is a man named Joe Rogan. He had the most wins, a 2.94 ERA, was the best pitcher in the league, while also being the second best hitter in the league. But since he was black, they never let him play in the majors. Sung-Hun Kim did it in Korea. He had 10 wins, a 2.88 ERA while hitting .305 and leading the league in RBIs. After one season, he just focused on hitting and instantly batted .400 6 times in 10 seasons, becoming one of the best hitters in Korean history. Babe Ruth started as a pitcher, and like everybody else, he would hit on days he pitched. He was so good at it, they occasionally let him pinch hit on days he wasn't pitching. Then in 1918, they actually let him do both. He was only able to pitch half as many innings as his previous season, but led the league in homers. He told the media, quote, "I can do it this season all right, but I wouldn't guarantee to do it for many more. I don't think a man can pitch in his regular turn and play every other game at some other position and keep that pace year after year." The next season, he became a full-time position player and instantly became the best hitter in baseball history. Since 1918, scoring 100 points in an NBA game is more common than a full-time two-way player. Scoring 6 goals in an NHL game is more common than a two-way player. More people have gone over the falls at Niagara Falls and survived than there has been full-time two-way players in MLB. History had proven that a player with enough talent to hit and pitch professionally could just focus on one and instantly become the best in the league in that role. So to justify being used as a two-way player, you have to produce at an elite level at both hitting and pitching at the same time. As soon as either your hitting or pitching drops below all-star levels of production, being in a two-way role instantly becomes detrimental. Ohtani had to prove that he could not only be a top 10 pitcher in MLB, he had to prove he could be a top 10 hitter in MLB while playing in Japan, a league that scouts view as being slightly above AAA. Ohtani had to essentially be the best hitter in Japan, be the best pitcher in Japan, do it at the same time, and do it at 21 years old. But time was ticking. People in Japan were starting to get impatient. Ohtani was already arguably the best pitcher in NPB. He had the best ERA, the most wins, the highest winning percentage, and in his third season out of high school at 20 years old, he had just won the pitching Triple Crown. However, he hit just .202 with 5 home runs and 17 RBIs. His lack of offense was becoming an issue. That offseason, at the Best Battery Award ceremony, Ohtani and his catcher were being honored for being the best pitcher-catcher combination in Japan. 2 members of the committee used the ceremony to scold Ohtani. First, a man named Michio Arito, former NPB pitcher, pointed out that he was not married, saying, quote, "Ohtani has nothing to protect. If he gets married, I wonder if his performance will change." He pointed out that his pitching performance declined in the second half, said Ohtani got 15 wins, and that even though that was the most in the league, based on his talent, he should have way more. Then Isao Harimoto, another former pro, added to the criticism. In front of Ohtani, he pleaded that he stop batting and focus on pitching, saying Ohtani is still just a kid and it is up to his manager to make this decision for him, and that, quote, he wants to go to MLB, but he will get injured before he can. This was said directly to Ohtani in front of a room crowded full of people who were there to honor the achievements of Ohtani. He responded by saying, quote, as for marriage, I think it would be nice, but right now, there's not much need. I intend to continue being a two-way player. I'll try my best. Ohtani was used to this type of criticism. Even his choice on what high school he was going to go to was covered when he was 14 years old. 3 years later, he became nationally known after throwing a 100-mile-per-hour pitch at 17 years old. In Japan, top high school baseball players become celebrities while playing in the Koshin, their national baseball tournament. That year's other phenom was a pitcher named Shintaro Fujinami. And that year's spring Koshin, Ohtani happened to face him. And during his very first at-bat,
思い切りすくい上げた打球が伸びていきますが向こう側入ったライトオーバーのホームラン
Arguably the best high school pitcher in Japan, Ohtani was still good enough as a hitter to hit a home run off the other top pitcher in Japan. The question became whether his pro team would draft him as a pitcher or position player. Around this time, his mother casually asked why he couldn't just continue doing both at the next level. He responded that the professional level is filled with players desperately trying to seize their position. Saying you want to hit and pitch is disrespectful. Ohtani was the clear number one prospect in Japan, but the decision he was about to make is what really made him a household name. Just a month before the NPB draft, Ohtani announced that he was going directly to America, becoming the first Japanese prospect in history to skip Japanese professional baseball altogether. Ohtani had not made his final decision until 3 hours before the press conference. His parents and manager both tried to convince him to play in Japan instead. The president of the Yorinomi Giants said Ohtani's decision caused him to, quote, feel a sense of crisis. The owner of the Carp said Ohtani's decision was, quote, a shame. Ohtani's decision was a major risk. If a player gets drafted in the NPB, they are allowed to decline and play in a different country. However, if they do decline, then eventually decide to come back to Japan, they must sit out 3 full seasons before playing a game. After hearing Ohtani's decision, Tsunukazu Momoi publicly said that Ohtani and others that follow in his footsteps should from now on be forced to sit out 5 seasons. Ohtani was essentially telling teams, do not draft me. I'm going to America no matter what. If you draft me, it will be a waste. The Nippon Ham Fighters drafted him anyway. This made Ohtani's decision to go to America even more risky. Since he had been officially drafted, Japan's rule now applied to him. If for whatever reason his MLB career didn't work out, he would no longer be welcome back in Japan. As videos showed other draft picks celebrating, Ohtani looked visibly shaken. After the selection, the team's manager said, quote, I'm truly sorry to Ohtani, but we've selected him. Ohtani quickly gave a press conference and stated that the possibility of him joining the Fighters was 0. A day after the draft, the Fighters went to Ohtani's high school to give him a gift of goodwill and pay their respects. Ohtani refused to meet them. The Fighters realized that they were in big trouble. Just a year prior, they had drafted top pitcher Tomoyuki Saganu after he publicly announced he would only sign with the Giants, the team his uncle managed. The Fighters drafted him anyway, then tried to negotiate. Saganu declined, and they ended up with no first-round draft pick. Failing to sign Ohtani would be the second botched first-round draft pick in 2 seasons. With little time to spare, the team had to somehow convince Ohtani to stay in Japan.
大谷投手と栗山監督の交渉が先ほど6時から始まりました。
In an attempt to convince Ohtani, they created a 31-page document called A Guide to Your Dreams. In it, they used diagrams and statistics that broke down the history of Asian players going to America and struggling. Went into detail on how Ohtani could reach his American goals quicker by going to NPB first. It emphasized that out of the 28 Korean players who went to America directly out of high school, only 4 actually made it to MLB. With him being a pitcher, his odds were even lower. It broke down how slim his odds of success were and showed that what he was attempting had never been done before. Unable to meet with Ohtani, the team gave it to his parents, hoping they would pass it along. Ohtani eventually did agree to a meeting. When presented with the information, he was undeterred. He told them he realized his goals were a long shot and hadn't been done before, but that he wanted to be a pioneer. Nothing the team presented seemed to sway Ohtani at all. The team was now desperate and realizing Ohtani's motivation was to do something that had never been done before. They came up with a pitch that was truly unprecedented. They drew up a plan that would allow Ohtani to both hit and pitch, an experiment that no MLB organization would allow him to do. He would be able to do something unprecedented in Japan and still allow him to go to America later and achieve his original goal. This hadn't even crossed Ohtani's mind. It was something the team wasn't even willing to do a week prior, and only offered it because it was a last-ditch effort to save them the embarrassment of wasting 2 first-round draft picks in a row. Baseball fans in Japan were glued to these negotiations. The news even reported on the color of the manager's wardrobe. He wore purple to remind Ohtani of the team colors of his high school, located just miles from his childhood home. He wore golden pants in the next meeting to remind him of his family's golden retriever, which he would have to leave behind if he went to America. The news even reported that the manager wore lucky underwear in hopes he could sway Ohtani. The day after the team informed Ohtani of their two-way plan, it was in newspapers across the country. And for Ohtani, it changed everything. According to someone in the meeting, as soon as he heard the words two-way player, his entire demeanor changed. And a few days later, Shohei Ohtani made his decision.
北海道日本ハムファイターズさんの方に入団させていただくことを、球団さんに伝えさせていただきました。今までお世話になった方や地元の方々に日本でプレーする姿を見ていただいて、少しでも恩返しできればいいなと思っていますし、子どもたちの目指す選手になれるようにこれから頑張ってファイターズの一員として頑張っていきたいなと思っています。
Without playing a single game, this fiasco made Ohtani one of the most well-known players in Japan and one of the most beloved.
僕は投げたり打ったりどっちもやらせてもらってるので、稲葉さんやダルビッシュさんを目標にしてやっていきたいなと思ってます。
He was already a spectacle. One of his coaches, after watching him in spring training, said, quote, "Ohtani has the greatest physical ability in professional baseball history." According to this report, he was already the main attraction in all of NPB during his first spring training. Another article claimed he was getting more attention than the Japanese national team who was playing in the World Baseball Classic at the time. A former NPB star and manager said he hadn't seen a player get this much attention in 30 or 40 years. A local restaurant named a dish after him, calling it Ohtani Mori. The team offered yearly tours for fans during spring training. Applications for this year rose 113%. Just because Ohtani. The team is owned by Nippon Ham, a food processing conglomerate. They announced they were going to release a special sausage in his name, called it the Ohtani two-way sausage, a special sausage that came with 2 sausages, one representing his hitting ability and the other representing his pitching ability. Just 2 weeks after graduation, he was facing major leaguers and embarrassing them. But many within Japanese baseball were already calling his failure. Katsuya Nomura is one of the greatest Japanese players in history. After winning 5 MVPs and 2 championships, he managed for 2 more decades and won 3 more championships. When Ohtani decided to skip NPB to go to America, he scolded him, saying, quote, "That 18-year-old brat. He's making a mockery of Japan's traditional baseball. He needs to get his act together." When Ohtani decided to stay in Japan and become a two-way player, his criticism continued. Quote, "That's outrageous. If I was the manager, I would definitely focus on just one thing. Being both an ace pitcher and cleanup hitter in the professional league is not realistic." He went on to say that he knows Ohtani wants to play Major League Baseball, but quote, doesn't think Ohtani even knows what Major League Baseball is. This was not just criticism. This was criticism from one of the most respected people in Japanese baseball, and plenty more followed. Isao Haramoto said, quote, "Both will be ruined. Ohtani will be ruined. This isn't amateur baseball. For the first time ever, he hit and pitched in the same game. He faced former MLB player Casey McGee and struck him out 3 times. A 27-year-old bullpen catcher on the team described catching the 18-year-old Ohtani as, quote, terrifying. Yet at his home debut, he went 0 for 3. A reporter covering the team said Ohtani was starting exhibition games but not producing results. He said Ohtani was constantly being shuffled around throughout training and that other players competing for regular positions were suffering, saying that teammates within the organization are openly expressing their dissatisfaction with the two-way experiment. The Nippon Ham Fighters, however, were committed to this experiment. They soon announced that Shohei Ohtani would be on the opening day roster, the first high school rookie to start in the major leagues in 54 years. Ohtani took the league by storm. In his first game, he batted 8th and played right field. In his second at-bat, then, a few innings later, he got his first hit and first RBI in his very first game. His first strikeout would have to wait. Not wanting to overexpose Ohtani, the team had him pitch in the minors. While on the major league roster as a hitter, he was sent down in between games to make minor league starts as a pitcher. His first minor league start got so much attention, it had to be moved to a major league stadium because that many people wanted to buy tickets. By May, the team thought he was ready. In his first major league start, he started his first inning with only fastballs, 10 straight fastballs, and retired the side. In June, he made history. The team finally allowed him to do both. He allowed 3 runs, but also got 3 hits, a walk, an RBI, and a double, leading his team to victory while for the first time ever hitting and pitching in the same game. Ohtani was selected as an all-star. He pitched, played left field, and hit in the same all-star game at just 19 years old. Ohtani had already made history multiple times, and he was barely out of high school. He was a fan favorite, but when it was all said and done, he ended the season with just a .661 OPS and an ERA of 4.23. Ohtani's final numbers in hitting and pitching were close to the bottom of the league. Traditionalists in Japan were not shy to point this out. Once again, Katsuya Nomura made it clear where he stood. Quote, "I'm completely against it. Is being a professional really that easy? Don't be ridiculous. Shame on you." Ohtani's lack of production was not the only problem. Even if he had been more productive, people questioned the effect this would have on his teammates. Nomura said, quote, "It's a team sport. It's not fun for the other pitchers too. It disrupts the team's harmony." Another former NPB star went public against Ohtani, saying that no other player on Ohtani's team supports him. You can imagine how many victims there are. No player is cheering for Ohtani, clapping their hands. If there is, they're a complete idiot. They were both alluding to another massive issue for a two-way player. In Japan, pitchers typically pitch every 6 days. Ohtani's team was giving him 7 or 8 days rest between starts, meaning the team had to have 6 starters and every other pitcher's routine was changed. Throughout his second season, his team would not even let him play the field or DH the day before or day after he pitched. Typically, Ohtani would take 2 entire days off, and typically, Ohtani would take 2 entire days off after each start. The team was worried about overusing Ohtani, but in the days they did use him, he crushed. Ohtani emerged in his second season with a slugging percentage over .500 and an ERA of 2.61. He went from being at the bottom of the league in both hitting and pitching to being elite in both hitting and pitching. He not only made the All-Star game, he was the starting pitcher in the All-Star game. The very first pitch of the game, the second pitch of the game, Shohei Ohtani tied the record for the fastest pitch in Japanese history at the All-Star game. That year, he became the first player in Japanese history and just the 3rd professional player in the history of the world to hit 10 home runs and win 10 games in the same season. Ohtani helped lead the Fighters back into the playoffs, and at just 20 years old, they made him the Game 1 starter. Ohtani was wild. He walked in a run, another run scored on a hit by pitch. He walked 3 and hit 2, but only allowed 3. He pitched 6 innings and became the youngest pitcher in Japanese history to win a playoff game. The next day, however, Shohei Ohtani was out of the lineup. Ohtani's manager made it clear They were protecting him. Even though these were the biggest games of the season, Ohtani's health was a priority, and they weren't going to push him past his limits. The fighters advanced and were now just a series win from going to the championship. However, Ohtani, their best pitcher, was not available to pitch. Typically, he'd be used in game 1 or 2, allowing him to get enough rest for a potential game 6 or 7. However, Ohtani's manager wanted to ensure he wasn't being overused. He DH'd in game 1, DH'd in game 2, DH'd in game 3, but knowing Ohtani was going to pitch in game 5, he made him sit on the bench in game 4. The fighters lost and were now just one loss away from elimination. Shohei Ohtani got the start. He was wild again. He walked a batter and hit 2 others. He gave up 4 runs in a nightmare second inning. The fighters looked doomed. Ohtani then made an adjustment. 61 of his next 81 pitches were off-speed pitches. He was unhittable. He ended up striking out 12 batters and going 7 innings. The fighters battled back and scored 4 unanswered runs. They forced extras and won it in the 11th inning. The heroic win forced a final win-or-go-home game. The fighters were 1 win away from going to Japan's World Series. But Ohtani's manager announced that Shohei would not be allowed to play. Ohtani would have to watch from the bench. His manager, cautious of burning him out, said, quote, "I can't put any more burden on him. He could do it for just 1 day tomorrow, but there are future considerations. It would be too much of a strain on his body." In the biggest game of the season, Japan's biggest star was not allowed to play. Nippon Ham only managed to score 1 run. They lost the game and were eliminated. He was the team's best pitcher and arguably their best hitter, yet in the most important series, he was only able to pitch 1 game and was out of the lineup for half of the series to either pitch or to rest in preparation to pitch. At 20, he had the second lowest ERA in the league, the second most strikeouts in the league, had the second most wins in the league. However, due to his restrictions, he didn't even manage to pitch 100 innings. At the plate, he had the 7th best OPS and the 2nd best slugging percentage in the Pacific League. However, he was not on the leaderboards because he didn't qualify, only hitting in 52 games. Ohtani's season was truly historic. He had been one of the best hitters and pitchers in Japan, but the limitations of doing both were becoming obvious. Tatsuya Nomura would later make this point clear again, scolding Ohtani's workload and said, quote, "If you want to rest, stop being a two-way player." Ohtani's old manager had commented on Ohtani's workload and said, "We must not forget, his dream is to go to Major League Baseball and have a long and successful career." But up to this point, it was clear no MLB team would even consider Ohtani as a two-way player due to the rest restrictions and shuffling that required him to do both. Reuters wrote a feature on Ohtani that offseason saying, quote, "He may have to give up one of his weapons in order to realize his dream of making it in Major League Baseball." And Yu Darvish that offseason said Ohtani could never make it to the majors as a two-way player. He had become one of Japan's biggest athletes. However, he still chose to stay in the team dorm. Typically for rookies, it is a facility with small bedrooms and a curfew. Japan's tabloids had become obsessed with Ohtani's dating life, but it was reported that the team instituted a no dating rule on Ohtani in order for him to develop his inner strength and resist temptation. Living with the team's rookies and minor leaguers, he had no rent, no bills, and no food costs. Ohtani's entire salary went to his mother. She would give him a monthly allowance. He was arguably the most famous athlete in Japan and was getting an allowance of $1,000 a month. Ohtani's sole focus was achieving his two-way goal. On occasions, he would be taken out of games as a pitcher, change his clothes, and immediately start weightlifting. One of his teammates recalled that the team had a flight home after a game, landed late at night, and when they got back to the dorm, they saw Ohtani working out. A player tried to advise Ohtani from overexhausting himself, and Ohtani responded, quote, "If we don't do it now, we won't make it in time. So whether we're tired or not is irrelevant." Ohtani had a dilemma. He wanted to go to MLB, but if he went now, it was clear no team would allow him to be a two-way player. And his 2015 season made this dilemma even worse. Ohtani was unhittable. He won NPB Pitcher of the Month in April. By June, he had a 1.66 ERA, and he was the starting pitcher at the All-Star game. But this time, he did not bat. The entire season, Ohtani only hit 5 home runs. He barely batted 200 and finished the year with a 628 OPS, an OPS that in MLB last season would land Ohtani as the 4th worst hitter in the league. On the mound, it was the opposite. In the Pacific League, he had the lowest ERA, the most wins, the most complete games, the most shutouts, and the most strikeouts. He won the pitching triple crown. He made Japan's best 9 as a pitcher, made Samurai Japan's national team as a pitcher, and won the best battery award. Where at the ceremony, he was famously scolded by 2 NPB legends for still selfishly trying to pursue a two-way career. It was clear Ohtani's pitching was light years above his hitting. So much so that Fangraphs wrote an article that year calling him the best young pitcher in baseball. The statistical analysis claimed Ohtani, already at 20 years old, without throwing a pitch in MLB, would be the 6th best pitcher in MLB. The article says that Ohtani will be Japan's next big baseball export. And it doesn't even mention that Ohtani was also a hitter. Jeff Passan that season said Ohtani has a chance to be the best in the world, referring to him exclusively as a right-handed pitcher. The Wall Street Journal called Ohtani Japan's Babe Ruth, but said, quote, nearly everyone, including Ohtani, feels pitching will be his ultimate calling. Ohtani's NPB exit was inevitable. He made it clear his goal was to leave Japan, and it's widely believed his team agreed to let him go whenever he wanted as part of their negotiations to sign him with the team. Going into 2016, the franchise even sent the entire team to Arizona and did 2 entire weeks of spring training in Arizona just to give Ohtani more exposure to American scouts. It's referred to as the Shohei Ohtani Showcase. He had his own personal bodyguard, and in the game he pitched, 50 scouts from 15 MLB teams were in attendance. One scout said Ohtani would be a top-line starter in MLB right now. ESPN was already calling him one of the best prospects on the planet. The LA Times said he was the most promising prospect on earth, and Baseball America called him the fastball prince, saying if Ohtani makes the jump to MLB, he would almost certainly have to give up being a two-way player. Even his own franchise was now doubting his two-way role. According to his manager, the organization began questioning and pressuring him to move Ohtani out of the lineup. The manager also said teammates began questioning the decision, citing an incident where an anonymous reliever was in tears after he felt that his career was being sacrificed for Ohtani's two-way dream. That offseason, when asked about going to MLB, Ohtani told the reporter, quote, I don't think I'll be able to go at this stage. My skills are overwhelmingly lacking. I just have to keep practicing. I need to do more, something better. Ohtani announced his workload would increase that offseason. His goal was to win 20 games and hit 20 home runs. And to do that, he would need to play more and rest less. To prepare, he ate 7 to 8 meals a day and gained 20 pounds. But when he returned to camp, Ohtani got publicly scolded by his manager. He had a decent spring as a hitter. However, his manager told the media, quote, he's not a key player at DH. His form and performance don't seem that bad, and that's the worst part. Because if he keeps going like that, he won't get any numbers. The team won't win. He was making his point clear to everyone. Ohtani was already an elite pitcher, but it was not enough for him to be a good hitter. To justify a two-way role, he needed to be an elite hitter as well, and the clock was ticking. Ohtani knew that the only way any team in MLB would let him try a two-way role was if he proved he could also be one of Japan's best hitters, while continuing being one of Japan's best pitchers. Do it without significant rest that disrupted the team, do it throughout an entire season, and do it now. If Ohtani wanted to spend his entire prime in MLB as a two-way player, he essentially had to have the greatest season in baseball history, and do it now at 21 years old. And that's exactly what he did. It didn't take long for Ohtani to make his mark. In his first game at the plate, he hit a homer. The next day, he hit another homer. Ohtani had just 5 home runs and 17 RBIs the year before. He was nearly halfway to those numbers in the first 2 games of the season. For the first time in his career, the Fighters allowed Ohtani to pitch 2 days after he appeared in the lineup. He allowed 1 run over 6 innings pitched. Despite having a 2.28 ERA, he went into May without a single win on the mound. That streak ended with a 9-inning, 138-pitch complete game. That week, he hit another homer. The day after that, he hit another homer. followed by his third home run in 3 games. After the game, his manager was asked how he felt about the home run. He said, quote, "It was average. The home run doesn't matter to me. Let's do a good job as a pitcher." Ohtani took his manager's criticism in stride, and on the next day, he hit another home run. Ohtani had hit 4 home runs in 4 games. He had gone from one of the worst hitters in Japan to being in the 3-hole. But after this game, his manager said, quote, "This is no time to be celebrating. This is no time to be happy. He should be able to hit better than this." In his very next game at the plate, Ohtani had just hit 5 home runs in 5 games. He matched his entire prior year's home run mark in 5 games. He was batting .330, had more homers and more RBIs than his entire previous season, and just 18 games at the plate. Ohtani became the youngest player in Japanese history to hit a home run in 5 straight games. But during this stretch, his manager said, quote, "How do you put this to good use on the mound? Where should you throw the ball? I want you to use this to your advantage next time." Ohtani's ERA had ballooned to 3.34. His best stretch of offense coincided with his worst stretch of pitching, and his manager made it clear this wasn't acceptable. After pitching 6 innings and giving up just 1 run, his manager said, quote, "He wasn't in good condition." In his next start, he got 0 run support and his team lost. Ohtani pitched 8 complete innings and gave up just 1 run. His manager said, quote, "His job is to win. It's disappointing." In May, Ohtani pitched a complete game, threw 138 pitches, had a tough second inning and gave up 4 runs. The fighter still won, but afterwards his manager said, quote, "It was a pathetic pitching performance." Despite Ohtani's insane offensive numbers, Kuriyama knew it was pointless unless he was able to maintain his pitching numbers as well. He knew Ohtani eventually had to prove he could do both at once, and he decided it was now or never, deciding to lift even more restrictions. And for the first time since his rookie season, allowed him to hit and pitch in the same game. And it captured the attention of Japan. He got a hit in the 5th, a hit in the 6th, and an RBI double in the 7th, going 3 for 5 with an RBI while allowing just 1 run over 7 innings. Ohtani was now officially a 2-way player. In the month of May, he hit in every single game he played. He hit 6 home runs, batted .429, and had an OPS over 1400. He had the best statistics in the league. And then he became the best pitcher in the world. Ohtani began June throwing the fastest pitch in Japanese history, breaking his own record at 102 miles per hour. Then he pitched a complete game while raising his batting average to .359. The fighters began selling t-shirts commemorating Ohtani's 102 mile per hour pitch. In his next start, he tied the record 5 times in 1 game, throwing 7 more shutout innings. In his next game, he went 1 for 2 with an RBI. He scored a run and drove in a run, then shut down the opposing team for 8 innings. Ohtani, by himself, out-hit and outscored the opposing team by himself while striking out 12 batters. On his last start of the month, he threw 7 more shutout innings, striking out 11 more batters. Ohtani didn't lose a single start in June. He led the league in ERA and strikeouts, got 4 wins, won the league's June MVP award with a .29 ERA, and only gave up 1 run the entire month. Halfway through the month, Ohtani had the best average in the Pacific League while having the 3rd best ERA in the league. Yet his team was in bad shape. On top of their league was the SoftBank Hawks, their arch rivals and defending champions. They came into the year heavily favored to win the league. Nearly halfway through the season, the fighters had fallen 11.5 games back. Manager Kuriyama felt the season slipping. Going into a series against SoftBank, down double-digit games, he determined that anything less than a sweep would end their hopes of a championship. So he decided to do something unprecedented that would galvanize the team. He would not only start Shohei, he would bat Shohei and have him bat leadoff. For the very first time in Japanese history, a pitcher batted leadoff. This was front page news in Japan. The entire baseball world turned in to see Ohtani break another barrier. And on the very first pitch of the game, Ohtani became the first pitcher in baseball history to hit a leadoff home run. He took 47 seconds to round the bases to conserve as much energy as possible. He then took the mound, pitched 8 innings, struck out 10 batters, and allowed 0 runs. Ohtani essentially ended the game by himself in the very first pitch of the game. Afterwards, his manager said, quote, "Just for today, I'll praise him. I thought this was the only way to win. I think he did a great job." This completed a sweep of the SoftBank Hawks and helped contribute to what soon became a 15-game win streak for the Fighters. Ohtani had won 7 starts in a row, had gone 4 starts in an entire calendar month without giving up a single run. He was the top player in Japan and now the most famous. In a survey of high school students, Shohei shockingly beat out Japanese legend Ichiro Suzuki, who was still playing in MLB at the time, for the most popular player in Japan. In July, he received 300,000 All-Star fan votes, beating every other player handedly. Ohtani was not only selected as a pitcher, he was selected as the starting pitcher and was also in the lineup as a DH. The starting pitcher at the All-Star game was also going to be the starting DH at the All-Star game, while also competing at the Home Run Derby the day before the All-Star game. Ohtani won the Home Run Derby. The best starting pitcher in Japan was also the best home run hitter in Japan. A feat so amazing, even American media began discussing it. Afterwards, Ohtani's own manager said he wasn't impressed, and that even though Ohtani hit more home runs, his opponent actually performed better, saying, quote, "Yamada was better, consistently hitting the sweet spot of the bat more often." Ohtani won 500,000 yen and afterwards immediately donated the money to his own teammates and the man who threw him the pitches in the Derby. Later that weekend, Ohtani started in the All-Star game. As the league's main attraction, he came to the plate and got a massive reaction. The broadcast was in the middle of comparing him to Babe Ruth when on the very first pitch he saw, Ohtani hit a home run. Then in the 7th, he gets another hit. And in the 8th, with runners on first and second and 2 outs, the Pacific League is down 1. Ohtani comes to the plate and drives in the game-tying run. Ohtani was selected as the clear MVP, ending the first half of the season leading the league in OPS and slugging. Went an entire month without giving up a single run, had the 3rd lowest ERA in the league, and became the first two-way pitcher in Pacific League history. Became the first player in professional baseball history to hit a leadoff home run, was June Player of the Month, was an All-Star pitcher, an All-Star DH, won the Home Run Derby, won the All-Star Game MVP at just 22 years old. Ohtani had emerged as the top player in Japan, the most popular player in Japan, arguably the biggest athlete in Japan. But after his historic weekend, when asked about Ohtani's All-Star MVP, his manager told the media, quote, "That's normal, isn't it? He can do so much more." Manager Kuriyama's constant criticism was meant to push Ohtani. He needed the two-way experiment to work almost as much as Ohtani himself. It was him who helped come up with the idea. For 3 seasons, he had been attacked for the decision, and when people within their own organization pushed to have Ohtani quit hitting, it was him who defended the two-way role. If the experiment failed or Ohtani got hurt attempting it, he was going to be the one blamed, and many already were. When Ohtani was moved into the leadoff spot, former NPB player and commentator Iso Haramoto publicly bashed Kuriyama. Quote, "I don't want to see him used in such a haphazard way. He needs to be treated with more care. There's a chance that both of his abilities will fail." And that was a genuine concern. Despite being chosen, Ohtani didn't pitch in the All-Star game. He was injured with a blister. Typically, this would cause a pitcher to miss a start, maybe 2. Ohtani didn't make another start for 2 months. The blister healed, but Ohtani was all of a sudden the team's best hitter. He hit 400 with a 1200 OPS in July. In August, he batted 300 with 7 home runs. He even stole 5 bases that month, and by the end of August, he had the highest OPS in the league. Even with less restrictions, Ohtani was being rested the day before and after he pitched. By pitching Ohtani, they'd be taking the best hitter in the league out of the lineup 2 nights a week. But at the same time, by allowing him to hit, they were taking the best pitcher in the league out of the rotation once a week. But with less than 1 month to play, the Fighters still trailed the Hawks. Time was running out, and the team had no choice. In his first appearance back, he tied the record with the fastest pitch thrown in Japanese history. In his next appearance, he broke that record, throwing a fastball 102 miles per hour. Ohtani is only allowed to go 5 innings, but the Fighters win. At one point, they were 11.5 games back, but after Ohtani hits this go-ahead sacrifice fly, they are now just 1 game back of taking first place. The Fighters were trailing the Hawks, and they were scheduled to play the Hawks in a 2-game series, which is 10 days left in the season. A loss would put them 2 games back, with just 8 games left to play. The entire season essentially came down to this series. And for the first time in 3 months, Ohtani made a start with no restrictions. Ohtani struck out 9 batters, went 8 complete innings, and gave up just 1 run. He also got a hit. The win tied the Fighters in first, and the next day, for the first time in his career, Ohtani played the day after he pitched. With 0 rest, he knocked 2 more hits. The Fighters won again. After being 11.5 games back, they were now in sole possession of first with 7 more games left to play. A few days later, Ohtani was back in the lineup. He knocked 3 more hits, including a game-tying RBI. Scored on a wild pitch in the 11th, winning the Fighters another game. The next day, another RBI from Ohtani made the difference, and they squeaked another 1-run win. The Fighters now just had to win 1 more game to win the division. And once again, it was Shohei Ohtani's turn to pitch. Shohei Ohtani pitched 9 complete innings, allowed just 1 hit, and struck out 15 batters. Afterwards, his manager said, quote, "I've never praised his pitching before, but it was fantastic." The Fighters only managed to score 1 run, but because of Ohtani, it did not matter. In the past 9 games, Ohtani had 3 game-tying or go-ahead hits. He pitched 17 innings, giving up just 1 run. He averaged 11.5 strikeouts a game and batted .411. He was essentially responsible for 5 wins by himself. Their 11.5 game comeback is one of the biggest in NPB history. It was only possible because they went 15-9 versus the Hawks. In those games, Ohtani batted .411, hit 9 home runs, and had a 1.26 ERA over 4 games pitched. Ohtani almost single-handedly willed his team to an 11.5 game comeback. But their rivalry with the Hawks was far from over. Reports in the US were saying MLB teams were willing to pay Ohtani $300 million now. Ohtani's franchise had told him and the media they wanted him to make history in America, but first, they needed him to bring them a championship. In order to do that, they were going to have to beat the SoftBank Hawks again. The Fighters got a bye. The Hawks swept a first-round series, and once again, they were going head-to-head. 2 years prior, he spent much of the playoffs on the bench, resting. His manager, this time, was not willing to do that. Ohtani started game 1, and just like he did all season, he dominated the Hawks again. He pitched 7 more shutout innings, allowed just 1 hit for the second start in a row, and went 1 for 2. Ohtani totaled his opponent's offense by himself. In prior years, the team worried about Ohtani's energy and health would force him to spend the next game on the bench. But less than 48 hours later, he was back on the field, drawing 2 more walks. After 4 games, the series was tied at 2. The Fighters just needed 1 more win to advance. Ohtani had played in every game. After going down 4 runs, the Fighters battled back, scoring 1 in the second, 1 in the third, and took the lead in the 4th. They shut down the Hawks for 7 straight innings. They just need 3 more outs to advance, and in a move that shocks everybody, they announce that Shohei Ohtani will be coming in to close the game. For the first time in his career, Ohtani is attempting to get a save. The first pitch he throws is 101. 2 pitches later, he throws one 102. Tying a Japanese record. He embarrasses the first batter with a splitter in the dirt. The next batter comes to the plate, and on the very first pitch of the at-bat, Ohtani throws the fastest pitch in Japanese history, 102.5 miles per hour, then strikes him out in 3 pitches. Ohtani then gets the final batter to ground out, and the Fighters advance. The only thing he had left to achieve was a championship, and now the Fighters are 1 series win away. Ohtani starts game 1. He gives up his first run in over a month. He ends up giving up 3 runs, but he strikes out 11 batters and goes 2 for 3 with an RBI at the plate. However, the Fighters lost this game. Ohtani is limited to just 1 at-bat and goes hitless in game 2, and the Fighters go down 0-2 in the series. Another loss, and they are doomed. Game 3 starts well. Ohtani opens it with a double. In his second at-bat, he hits another double, followed by a walk. The Fighters only need 3 outs to secure a win, but they can't close it. An RBI single ties the game. The game is going into extras, and the Fighters' championship is in serious jeopardy. In the 10th, once again, it's up to Ohtani. With 2 outs and a runner on second, he comes to the plate with a chance to win the game. He is down to his last strike. Ohtani has once again saved the Fighters, completely shifting the momentum of the series. They would go on to win 3 straight games, outscoring the Carp 18-5 and becoming NPB champions. In the playoffs, he had a win on the mound, a save on the mound, and a walk-off win. He ended the season with an OPS over 1,000 and a 1.86 ERA. He led the Pacific League in OPS and slugging while being second in average. At the same time, he was the only starting pitcher in Japan with an ERA under 2. Ohtani was the best pitcher in Japan and the best hitter in Japan at the same time. He won June MVP, was selected as the starting pitcher at the All-Star Game, won the Home Run Derby the day before the All-Star Game, then won MVP of the All-Star Game. Set the record for the fastest pitch ever thrown in Japanese history 3 times. The Best 9 award in Japan honors the best player at each position. Ohtani was selected as the best pitcher in Japan and the best DH in Japan. The first player in history to win 2 Best 9 awards in 1 season. That year, he won MVP of the league, winning 253 of 254 potential votes. Ohtani just had the best season in history, not solely because of his accolades, but because he was able to convince the world he could be a 2-way player. After the season, Katsuo Nomura made a public apology to Ohtani, even later meeting him in person, saying, quote, "I'm sorry, Ohtani-san. I thought it was impossible to be a 2-way player. But after watching you play, if I were the manager, I would want you to do it." Ohtani's goal was to eventually go to America and make history as a 2-way player. And thanks to this season, he had earned a chance to try.